And and once again, good morning and welcome to the Northwest Check-In right here on Gtown Radio, 92.9 FM WGGT LP Philadelphia, and online at Gtown Radio. And our guest for this morning is here. It is Germantown's own Ronaldo McKenzie. Ronaldo,
Yes.
thanks for stopping in this morning. And
Yes,
joining
sir.
us.
Definitely.
I know you've got a book out. We're going to talk about your book a little bit, and we're also going to talk about you
Yes.
right here in the community. Just for those who don't know who you are,
Yes.
give us just a little background on yourself.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to be in the studios today.
Indeed, I would
And-
just say that this is a very special event for us
Yes,
here at the station,
yes,
and you may
yes.
not even be aware of it, Ronaldo, is that 2 years ago, when the pandemic, pretty much around the time that we had began this program, the Northwest
Yes.
Check-In, as a chance to check in on the community, provide them with information to navigate through
Yes.
the COVID-19 pandemic. And we have obviously, like many businesses and many organizations and event space, etc., we're unable to have our public come in and be
Right.
part of our community. Obviously,
Yeah.
we have protocols such as your vaccination card, which you kindly showed me this morning and everything,
Yes.
to pop on in here. But we are excited because this is the first time in the history of this program that we've had a live guest on.
Yeah,
Because
and-
the show was created
For-
during the COVID time, so we've had people on virtually. So we actually have our first physical guest. So I don't know what that means in terms of our history, but you have the honor of being the first physical guest on the
Wow,
Northwest
wow,
Check-In.
and I this is important and this is good, and it's good to be here. I've been living in Philadelphia for a long time, especially Germantown.
Yeah.
I mean, not a very long time because you hear the accent. I'm from Jamaica, but I came here in 2009, and it has been quite an experience for me. I went to University of Pennsylvania, and when I got into University of Pennsylvania, that wasn't my plan to be at University of Penn. But I got in there and I was able to, I got into Temple and Drexel, and then someone asked me to apply to University of Penn. But anyways, I applied and I got in as a provisional student. And I think I was telling you this story some time ago. But I came from Jamaica. I already had gone to university. I was a pastor. I also worked as some national director, but when I came here, I brought all those skills and talents with me, and I wanted to go to the next level, and University of Penn really grounded me. And I did a research, and I was able to publish a book that looks at poverty, looks at inequality. And I think it was the book Life and Death, not the book, the Netflix film Life and Death,
Okay.
by Jamaica Kincaid and Stephanie Black, which really given me this kind of interest in studying things of that affects the human, because we are about promoting positive human opportunities for the human being and competitiveness and fairness. So I decided, let me study that, because I'm from Jamaica. What are the effects of globalization?
Right.
What creates the dynamics in the world that causes brain drain, that causes that kind of global south, global north dynamic? And when we talk about global south, we talk about the developing countries. We no longer use global south, and we no longer use third world. We no longer use third world, or we use global south, which is more inclusive word, because language is important, as I said to you. But I am about, currently I have graduated from Penn. I'm at Georgetown University to do my doctorate of liberal studies, and I'm a student of liberal studies. And liberal studies speaks to issues of ethics and human value. Issues of ethics and human value, because I would encourage anyone to be a student of liberal arts. So I study liberal arts. I study things that challenge the development of human society, issues that challenge our progress. And I've been here since 2009, but I actually moved fully in Philadelphia, in Germantown, in 2012.
Okay.
And it has been great. I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and I have several friends in the community. I'm involved in our church. I go to the church at Old First UCC Church, at 4th and Race. I find that quite interesting. But what I find really, when I just came to Germantown, I I was having a conversation with somebody. Germantown was ideal to me. There was something about the atmosphere.
What about it that you connected with?
I'm from Jamaica, and the Germans, we have some kind of German history in Jamaica, and Germantown has that strong influence in terms of the aesthetics of the community. It's just the feel of the community, and then the people. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that of all the places in Philadelphia, Germantown was the less crazy place. No, I mean, of all the places in Philadelphia, I thought it was one of the communities I really was fascinated with. There is this inclusivity. There is this people. There is this diversity, and there's always something happening in the community. I believe when I came here, there's something that. And not only that, it's close to the suburbs. It has this suburban feel. Right. There's this openness. There's the space that you have, and so that's what I like about the air. And this next to Lincoln, maybe that's where some of the pond or the lake or whatever. That's where it's coming from. But the air, and it's hilly. And I'm from Jamaica, which is very mountainous and hilly, and I like that. It's not flat. So there's the atmosphere and the feel of it and the history. When I drive through Germantown, I feel like I'm in Trelawney. There's a place in Jamaica called Trelawney. So I feel as if I am in Trelawney because it's the way in which buildings are constructed. It gives that same kind of feel. Yes, and another thing is, and the next thing is the people are inviting. The people are inviting, easy to talk to. And I decided that this is where I want to settle in Germantown.
Well, we're glad to have you in the community.
Yes.
And more importantly, you stopped in here this morning
to
spend some time with us here and check in. The name of the program, of course, is the Northwest Check-In. We invite the citizens of our community.
Yes.
Interesting going on culturally, civically, community-minded to check in and be part of the program. And we're getting just kind of touch on your book here. It's called Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty, and Resistance. Just what you kind of alluded to what inspired it, and that was kind of growing up in Jamaica and combining. But it's not just about within Jamaica. It's a more broad book, correct?
The book the book was reviewed by Kirkho's Review and Online Book Club and several others. And I think some of the book reviewers would for example, Kirkho's Review said that it's an erudite analysis. It's an erudite analysis of Jamaica's economic history. But I wouldn't. But it's not just about Jamaica's economic history. It's look at the dynamics of human society
and sort of using Jamaica as
a case study.
Yes. Just for those listeners who may be unfamiliar, can you kind of give us a brief history of Jamaica and why this is a good case study?
It's a good case study because, say for example, Jamaica, and just so you know, Prince William and Princess Kate, they went to Jamaica recently, and there is this huge, some Jamaicans are for the monarchy. Jamaica is still, England is still our head of state. The Queen Elizabeth is still our head of state, but Jamaica was a colony of Britain. But before so, of the Spanish, Christopher Columbus discovered Jamaica in 1492, and we were a colony of Jamaica. And after that, the English took Jamaica from the Spanish, and they started the slavery or the slave trade, and the sugar plantation. They started to do. So Jamaica was part of the whole slave trade, where some slaves came from Africa. And of course, and the slaves stopped in Africa. They provided spices and so on. So the slave trade, so they were part of that. But of course, after slavery was abolished in 1833 in Jamaica, the emancipation of slavery was in 1833, and the abolishment of slavery was in 1866. This was 30 years after the abolishment. What happened was that many of the slaves left the plantation, so there was indentured servitude or indentured labor, people from China and India. So you saw that so Jamaica is mixed up of Chinese, Indians, and cross-pollination. And so what happened is that Jamaica over time has since moved towards independence in 1962 in a way to develop and to carve their own history. But what has happened is that Jamaica has had to liberalize its economies. They have to, And at one moment, when Jamaica got independence in 1962, they used the British dollars, they used, sterling pound, and it went from the sterling pound to the Jamaican dollars, and they had to liberalize the economy. So they had to remove tariffs, deunionize, open up their economy so as to create penetration, because as they became independent, at the same time the world was speeding towards globalization.
Right.
You know what was going on in the world. So many of these states, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, and many of the former Caribbean colonial countries, the countries that were once colonies of Britain, they went in the 1960s and in that period were affected by what was happening in the world. And of course, by the 1970s, they met with the oil crisis. And the oil crisis really affected these countries to the sense that they are vulnerable, and they're smaller states, and so and as a result, they needed money, and they went to they went to the IMF and the World Bank, and they got and that's what we talk about, structural adjustment. They created a plan with the WTO and IMF and the World Bank to help vulnerable states as the world moves towards globalization and the world moves towards crossing borders, including the Caribbean islands, because part of globalization is to cross borders. You want to facilitate this crossing of borders, the exchange that takes place between countries. But part of this exchange, there is this unfairness. What is this that creates poverty? What it is that creates inequality? What it is that puts people behind? So when I came to the US, I was interested in that. I wanted to find out, why is it that people in the Caribbean, people in the global south, why is it that their lives are so vulnerable compared to the other countries? And so I wanted it to be more interdisciplinary. And so that led me to the point of wanting to explore the issues of poverty, because I come from poverty in a sense, not really poverty but I come from compared to the US, I come from poverty, and the experience of poverty, as I said to you, is different. The poverty in the Caribbean that people experience is they have a bucolic society. In the US and post-industrial country, the kind of society is different. So I wanted to understand that, and the international arrangements that creates income inequality, poverty, and then explore solutions to that. And so of course when I came here, I started to I worked with Martin Oppenheimer and Walter Litt and some of these people to study this concept of globalization. And of course I was reading several books. Martin Oppenheimer was very influential in my life. But I wanted to understand, I was interested in globalization because Jamaicans travel, people of the Caribbean, the world is about travel. People travel, and I said in the book, people travel for opportunity.
Right.
People travel to get to the next level, and the world has always been about travel. But of course, there are those who are preventing travel. You know, there's the immigration issue, and I wrote recently, until we deal with the problem of immigration, or the problem of poverty and income inequality, or the unfairness within competition, or the unfair competition in society, we won't deal with immigration. So we won't fix the problem properly or resolve it.
So you're saying that the immigration issues are really related to income inequality and poverty, because people are looking for greater advances.
Yes,
and improvements.
yes.
Okay.
So people are looking to advance, and people have and travel. The story of America is the story of immigrants coming here looking for opportunity. The story of people in the global south and vulnerable people are people who are struggling, looking for opportunity. And travel facilitates and produces. Immigration speaks to that issue of travel, and globalization speaks to that, because globalization is about crossing borders.
Right.
And we are to facilitate this kind of cross-border relations, or the exchange that takes place in humanity, because life is about people and how people relate. Life is about people and how people relate. And we talk about communication. Communication is to make popular what was the monopoly. And so what we are doing, and globalization facilitates this kind of exchange, this kind of movement, and so on. But it also brings with it brain drain. Say, for example, I'm from, where the best and the brightest are leaving. So I wanted to understand all those concepts. The fact that people are moving and that they have to move. and at the same time there are immigration policies that is preventing that. So one thing that I talk about is connectionism. I talk about the fact that the kind of Protestant ethic that drives us no more is not one of the Protestant ethic or the one of, that was what Max Weber says, hard work, savings and so on, but it's one of nepotism and greed and connectionism, where people form connections and groups and association that and then create laws to govern that trade and to facilitate international movement. But more often than not, some persons benefit and others don't, and so that's what we have. So globalization helps to facilitate this, but in a sense there are winners and losers.
Right.
But why are there winners and losers?
That was my question. I was going to, what do you see causing this divide?
Yes.
I mean, on one hand, we're talking globalization,
Yeah.
when you think about it from an economic and business aspect, you start to go, okay, it seems to be without getting into like a heavy-duty political discussion, it seems that those in the corporate larger scale are all for it when it benefits them, yet when they see the individual seeking the opportunity, that is frowned upon, yet it is still that the divide, it doesn't seem to be equal. So
that is true. I have said that what I have said is that what has happened with the Caribbean or the people of the global south, or people who are not meaningfully involved in globalization that is neoliberalized. Right. And when I talk about neoliberalism or neoliberal, neo means new, liberal means free. So we're talking about breaking down barriers to globalization. But Michael Crozier talks about the bureaucratic phenomenon.
Right.
And the bureaucratic phenomenon is, in a sense, a duplicitous, deals with issue of duplicity, deals with issues of hypocrisy or Pharisaicalism, where you say, do as I do, but not as I say. So what happened was that, say for example, the World Trade Organization and many of the international bodies are created, and when they were created so that persons can abide by certain rules and agreement that speaks to fair game and competition. And I've always said that I am for competition. Nothing is wrong with competition, but the problem of competition is, one, there are those who has already gained a competitive advantage in the world. And so if you have already gained some kind of competitive advantage in the world at the expense of others, and now you're moving in a globalized world, we have to facilitate their inclusion in the world. We have to try to facilitate their development in the world. And so what has happened is that when organizations came together with rules and guidelines that would say, for example, talking about structural adjustment policies to regulate the economies, the certain guidelines have to be fair. So in the sense that say for example, I talk about this in my book, at one instance, in an effort to speed towards globalization, so as to facilitate multinationalism and transnationalism, which was actually the overall what has happened with neoliberal globalization. One of the things that we know that was part of the structural adjustment agreement with the IMF, the World Bank, and which falls on the WTO, because World Trade Organization is about facilitating trade between countries and so on. And then the IMF and the World Bank was created to provide smaller states and developing states with the aid so that they can meaningfully engage the world, this new thrust of globalization. But this is what happened. As I said, I talk about the bureaucratic phenomenon, or this issue of Pharisaicalism, where do as I say but not as I do. The problem is, say for example, farmers and milk producers in Jamaica and in some Caribbean islands could not now subsidize, because you don't want unfair trade. Right. You want it to, so part of this neoliberal globalization, which I said is a strategy, because I'm going to speak to the issue of strategy. Mm-hmm. Strategy was here it is that the US and other post-industrial countries, the post-industrial countries, were subsidizing their farmers and so on and so forth, while in the global south and these other countries, they were part of the agreement and they couldn't subsidize the local. That was part of the agreement. So you see, we're talking about neoliberal, we're talking about globalization, we're talking about facilitating trade, and talking about fair game. But here it is that there's other persons from other countries who are already dealing with the past, already dealing with the past of colonialism and so on. Now, met with the issue of an inability to provide necessary developmental gains or investment in their country based on WTO's ruling, which now puts them back. It puts them back because now they have to get a loan, what do they apply to the loan? They apply what they believe that how the Caribbean, and say for example, Michael Manley was the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, indicated in an interview some time ago, talks about the fact that they were given loans then because because the problem in the Caribbean is money. They don't have money, and we know tourism and bauxite and so on, and agriculture is no longer part of the. Say for example, the Caribbean used to export banana, but after NAFTA, they no longer, because they had a preferential agreement.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And of course, because it was against WTO policy. So the point I'm making is that you see, globalization and the world comes together to facilitate trade and so on. But at the same time, where are some of these countries starting from?
Exactly. So you have a good country that's already, again, we'll use Jamaica as the example. It's a small province. It has, as you mentioned earlier, on the scale of poverty.
Yes.
It's definitely, and the race is their way down here.
Yes.
And so, and they're having to compete or at least factor that. But how does this impact the actual individual?
Yes.
If that's what I guess it's.
It
like a citizen, a human being living in Jamaica.
In Jamaica is, you can, when you watch Life and Death, and even if you listen to the stories, and the fact that Jamaica has people in the Caribbean, we talk about brain drain. Mm-hmm. The fact that people travel. I said, okay, I listened to the introduction of my book, sure. Really, and you have to. This is quite interesting, and I thought because I believe it also talks about my experience as an individual of the global south moving to the global north, and you're talking about global south, global north dynamic, and so on. I said, when we hear of Jamaica, we think of the Caribbean, we think of beautiful islands of paradise, with sun, sea, and sand, reggae music, cannabis, and Irish people like Usain Bolt, people who are living out their best lives and desires and dreams. But this book analyzes this motif, given the historical and current economic and political situation in Jamaica and the global south. And I said, in an attempt to escape the adverse realities of poverty, inequality, and injustice, the people of the global south find themselves in north metropolises. Notice I say north. I'm playing with it. I'm being very deliberate when I say north metropolises, the post-industrial country, with very little agency and minimal change, to their lives. So, there is no escape for the person from the global south. There is no escape. So they feel locked in because there you have some Jamaicans feel as though it's a political issue. That the politicians are weak-kneed and lack vision, and that and of course in Jamaica there's the issue of criminality. So Jamaicans and people of the global south are always looking to travel. They're always looking for opportunity, because for many Jamaicans and many people in the global south and vulnerable countries, there is no hope except outside of their own countries.
And I'd like to get back to that and talk about how it impacts the country itself due to brain drain.
Yes.
But let's take a little break here. For those listening in this morning on the Northwest Check-In, we are here with author, scholar, Germantown resident, Ronaldo McKenzie. We're talking about neoliberalism, globalization, income inequality, poverty, and resistance, which just happens to be the name of his latest book.
Yes.
We'll talk a little bit more about that. Going to take a little note. It's something we have every morning at this time. We improve our vocabulary.
Okay.
Ronaldo, with a word of the week produced by one of our programmers, Reed McCardle, who hosts Speech.
Okay, I'm gonna add that one. That's a good one. All right.
And I'm sure we're both going to figure out how to use this word.
Yes. Is it Saprostia?
Saprostomus.
Saprostomus?
Yes, Saprostomous.
Saprostomus.
So there you go.
I do not. I hope I don't have Saprostomus this morning.
There you go. we have Mike.
Yes.
We have Mike socks.
Oh yes, we
Yes,
and we are apart. Yes,
we're good. And
Yes.
we have this nice spray just in case. But we're not using it this morning. You're fine. Thanks for joining us. This is fun to have an actual live guest in here. Just a couple other things I want to talk to our listeners about that we do here in the morning is this weekend. There's lots of stuff going on in cleaning up our neighborhood. And, you know, Germantown is having a number of cleanups. I'm going to get to some of them for you right now. One of which is going to be happening at the town hall. They're going to dirty up dirt.